All right, getting ready for a court jury coordinator interview, huh? Well, this is not your average desk job, that's for sure.
Definitely that.
And we're diving deep into RoleCatcher's insights today to give you a leg up.
Should be really useful.
But before we get to those sample questions, how about we get a clear picture of what this job actually looks like?
It's a lot of things all at once. You got to be a strategist, you got to be a researcher, and you got to be a bit of a psychologist all in one.
Sounds intense.
It is. You're that link between the legal team and the jury.
So really important role, making sure things run smoothly and fairly throughout the whole trial.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of the questions you might get in the interview. And this first one's a classic. Walk us through your experience coordinating court juries.
Oh, yeah, you'll definitely hear that one.
Where do you even start with something like that?
This is your chance to really show them what you know, to highlight your expertise. Show them how you approach this unique role. Don't just give them a list of job titles you've had.
Right, right.
Instead, think about what kind of cases you've worked on. Maybe talk about the size and the makeup of the juries that you've worked with. And definitely bring up any challenges you've come across. The interviewer wants to see how you think, how you handle the unexpected things that pop up.
So instead of just saying, I coordinated juries, you'd say something like, I worked on a fraud trial recently, managed a jury of 12 people from all different walks of life, and then talk about like a specific problem you had to deal with, right?
Exactly. Like maybe there was a juror who needed some special accommodations, or maybe you had to deal with potential bias when you were picking the jury.
Oh, that's a good one.
Sharing those real-life examples, that's what paints a clear picture for them, shows them what you're really capable of.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, RoleCatcher has that AI feature. Does that come in handy here?
Oh, absolutely. RoleCatcher's AI is really smart. It looks at the job description and picks out those keywords, those skills this particular employer is looking for. And it can even help you tailor your answer.
Oh, interesting.
So you're focusing on the parts of your experience that are the most relevant to this specific job.
So it's like having your own little interview coach right there in your pocket, helping you put your best foot forward.
I love that. Okay, let's move on to a question that I think gets to the heart of our legal system. How do you make sure those jurors are impartial and unbiased?
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
How would you approach that?
This question is all about showing your commitment to fairness, to being impartial. Talk about how you communicate that need for objectivity to potential jurors, and share some strategies you've used to spot and address potential bias during the selection process.
Yeah, makes sense.
Think about it.
So maybe you have a training program in place for jurors, or maybe you use questionnaires to try to figure out if there are any biases.
Could be.
What about when you have a really high-profile case and all the media coverage could influence jurors? Would you bring that up? Absolutely. Addressing those kinds of tough situations shows that you can think critically and that you can handle anything they throw at you. You can mention things like isolating the jury,
Okay, yeah.
or maybe having stricter media guidelines.
I see, yeah. So that's where really understanding those legal procedures comes in handy.
For sure. You got to know your stuff. Now, before we move on, I wanted to point out that RoleCatcher's Career Guide actually digs into some of the trickier aspects of juror impartiality.
Oh, interesting.
It goes deep on things like implicit bias
Okay.
and offers strategies to deal with those unconscious biases during the selection process.
So it's not just about fairness on the surface. It's about digging deeper and getting to those underlying biases that we all have. That's fascinating. All right, everything's running smooth, jury selection's done.
Great.
And then, bam, conflict. What do you do when conflict breaks out among jurors?
Oh, boy.
How do you handle that?
Conflict is gonna happen, especially when things get tense. That interviewer, they want to know that you can handle those conflicts, calmly, quickly, and effectively.
For sure.
Emphasize the importance of clear communication, really listening to what they have to say and using those mediation techniques.
Yeah.
Share some real examples of how you've successfully dealt with conflicts before. Focus on what steps you took and what the outcome was.
So you could say, I had this group discussion to work through some disagreements. Or we put a conflict resolution protocol in place.
Yeah, those are good examples.
But what happens when it's a really serious conflict, like a personality clash that's throwing the whole jury off balance?
Well, in those extreme cases, you might have to make a tough decision and dismiss a juror.
Okay.
But that's a last resort, of course. You gotta show them that you tried every other option first.
So I'm hearing that this role is all about diplomacy, being firm when you need to be, and really understanding how people tick.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can help you polish your answer to this question too.
Oh, right.
Make sure you're hitting all those key points the employer's looking for.
Like having a secret weapon in your back pocket. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. You're juggling multiple trials at once. It sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It can be.
How do you prioritize everything when you've got so much going on?
That's a great question. They're testing your organizational skills, seeing if you can handle a heavy workload.
Right.
You want to describe your system for prioritizing. Maybe you use a project management tool or a color-coded calendar to keep everything straight.
Oh, I'm all about those color-coded calendars. It's
Yeah.
like bringing order to the chaos.
I hear you. And remember, be specific. Don't just say you're organized. Give them examples.
So you could say something like, I use this software to keep track of deadlines for each trial, and I prioritize tasks based on how urgent they are. For example, when I was prepping for jury selection in 2 trials that were happening at the same time, and then share a story about how you managed your time.
Perfect. You're showing them exactly what you can do.
This is where RoleCatcher's AI could really come in handy. It can analyze the job description and figure out which organizational skills this employer values the most, so you can tailor your answer and focus on those.
Exactly. It's like a customized roadmap for your interview. Okay, let's talk about your experience with managing court budgets. Can you walk us through that?
This might not seem directly related to coordinating juries, but it shows you can handle responsibility and resources, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of legal roles need some level of budget management. Even if you haven't managed a court budget specifically, you can still talk about any relevant experience you have.
Okay, I see. So maybe you've managed budgets for specific projects or tracked expenses for a legal department.
Yeah.
The important thing is to highlight your understanding of how to manage a budget.
Right. And be specific. Again, don't just say you managed budgets. Talk about what types of budgets you worked with, how big they were, how complex they were,
Gotcha.
and any challenges you faced.
Right. So instead of saying I managed budgets, you could say, in my last job, I was in charge of a $50,000 budget for a big litigation case. I had to be careful about how I allocated resources for expert witnesses, travel expenses, and court filing fees. And then give them a specific example of how you handled those resources well. Or maybe a time when you overcame a budget challenge.
Now you're talking. And RoleCatcher's AI can help you here too. It can look at the job description and identify those financial management skills that are most important to this employer.
It's like having a secret weapon that helps you connect your experience with what the employer needs. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how you make sure jurors are adequately compensated for their time.
Yeah, that's an important one.
This question shows you care about the jurors and that you understand fair compensation.
Right. You want to emphasize your knowledge of the rules and procedures for compensating jurors, including any updates or changes that have happened recently.
Okay, yeah.
And don't shy away from talking about challenges you faced in this area and how you dealt with them.
So maybe there was a time when a juror had a hard time getting their compensation and you had to go to bat for them.
Exactly.
Or maybe you put a new system in place to make the compensation process smoother and more efficient.
Yeah, those are great examples. Sharing those kind of stories shows you can solve problems and that you're committed to making sure jurors are treated fairly.
Makes sense. And as always, RoleCatcher's AI can help you highlight those specific keywords and phrases about juror compensation that are mentioned in the job description.
It's like having a personal editor who helps you write the perfect answer for this employer. Okay, let's look at a similar question that focuses on a wider range of potential hardships for jurors. How do you ensure they can carry out their duties without facing any undue hardship?
Oh, yeah. This one's about understanding all those different needs and responsibilities that jurors have.
Exactly. They want to see that you're genuinely concerned about the jurors and that you're not just going through the motions.
Right, you're not just checking boxes.
Think about any strategies you've used to make things easier for them, like providing childcare, being flexible with trial schedules around their work commitments, or helping with transportation issues.
And RoleCatcher's AI can point out those key words related to accommodating jurors' needs, making sure you're speaking directly to the employer's priorities.
Absolutely. It's like having a behind-the-scenes advisor helping you craft the perfect response. All right, let's move on to a question about staying current. How do you stay up to date with changes in court procedures and regulations?
The ever-changing legal world.
It's always changing.
This one's all about showing your commitment to learning new things and adapting to new information.
Right. You got to be on top of it. Highlight your proactive approach to staying informed.
Right.
Do you go to training sessions or conferences? Do you subscribe to those legal journals and newsletters? Do you participate in online forums or discussion groups?
It's a lot to keep up with.
It is. Share specific examples of how you've successfully put new procedures in place or adapted to changes in the rules.
So maybe there was a time when a new rule came out, and you had to quickly learn it inside and out, and then train your team on how to do things the new way. Sharing those kind of stories shows that you can be flexible and resourceful.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher's AI can be super helpful here too.
How so?
It can analyze the job description and figure out which specific areas of court procedures and regulations are most important to this employer.
Oh, I see. So you can tailor your answer and make sure you're hitting those key points. It's like having a personalized study guide for your interview.
Hmm.
Okay, let's tackle one final question for this part of our deep dive. It's a big one. How do you maintain confidentiality and security when handling all that sensitive juror information?
Ah, yes, confidentiality. This one goes straight to the heart of ethical conduct and professional responsibility.
For sure.
The interviewer wants to know that you understand how sensitive this information is and that you have systems in place to protect it.
Yeah. It's about building trust
Yeah.
and making sure the legal process stays fair and unbiased.
Right on. Now talk about the specific policies and procedures you follow to keep that information confidential and secure. Things like using secure databases, having strict access controls, and training your team on the importance of data privacy.
And once again, RoleCatcher's AI can provide extra support.
Always.
It can analyze the job description and help you find those key words about confidentiality and security, making sure your response is tailored to what the employer is looking for.
It's like having a personal ethics advisor right in your pocket, making sure you're doing things by the book.
I love it. All right, we've covered a ton of ground today. We tackled some of the most common interview questions for a court jury coordinator, and we learned how RoleCatcher's AI can help you craft those perfect answers. I feel like I've already learned so much.
Me too. But we're not done yet. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to get into even more insightful interview questions.
Okay, great.
And we'll explore some of the resources available in the RoleCatcher Career Guide, like potential career paths and certifications. So stay tuned.
I will.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of court jury coordinators. We've already tackled some of those common interview questions you'll likely face. But let's face it, some questions can feel like a real curveball.
Yeah, like that dreaded salary question always makes me a little uncomfortable.
For sure.
How do you recommend handling a question like, what are your salary expectations for this role?
It's definitely one that requires some careful thought. It's not just about throwing out a number. You want to show that you understand what the role is worth in the market
Okay, yeah.
and what your own skills and experience are worth too.
So how do you strike that balance,
Mm-hmm.
between being confident and being realistic?
Preparation is key. Before you even walk into that interview, do your homework.
Makes sense.
Use resources like RoleCatcher's Career Guide to see what the typical salary range is for this role in your area.
Okay, yeah.
Think about your experience level, those specialized skills you've got, and any certifications you hold.
So it's like building a case for your own value.
Mm.
I like that analogy.
Exactly. And when you present your salary expectations, be clear and confident. You could say something like, based on my research and my experience, I'm looking for a salary in the range of, and then fill in your desired range.
That sounds much
Yep.
better than just, throwing out a random number. But what if they push back? What if they say your expectations are too high?
Don't sweat it. This is where your negotiation skills come in. Reiterate your value. Highlight those unique skills and qualifications you've got. Maybe you have a proven track record of coordinating complex trials.
Yep.
Or maybe you've got specialized knowledge in a certain area of the law.
So it's about turning the conversation back to your strengths.
Exactly. You could also emphasize your willingness to be flexible. Say something like, I'm definitely open to discussing the details of the whole compensation package, but I'm confident that my skills and experience match up with the responsibilities and market value of this role.
That keeps the lines of communication open. Now, RoleCatcher's AI can be helpful in these situations, right?
Absolutely.
Does it provide any insights on salary expectations?
RoleCatcher's AI can look at that job description and give you some valuable insights into the company's culture. What's their typical compensation philosophy.
Oh, interesting.
This can help you figure out what to expect and approach that salary conversation strategically.
It's like having a peek behind the curtain, getting a glimpse into how the company really operates. All right, let's move on to another question that often trips people up. What are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? And how do they relate to this role?
Yeah, that one's a bit tricky.
It is.
It's all about balance.
Right.
You want to show self-awareness, but you also want to present yourself in the best light.
Of
The
course.
key is to be honest and genuine, and to make sure your answers connect to what the job actually requires.
Yeah. So for strengths, you might mention your organizational skills, how you stay calm under pressure, or maybe your ability to read people and spot potential bias. Those are all important for a court jury coordinator.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about weaknesses, pick areas where you're actively trying to improve.
Oh.
Frame them as opportunities for growth, not as roadblocks you can't overcome.
So you could say something like, I'm a very detail-oriented person, which is great for this role, but I'm also learning to delegate tasks more effectively so I don't get bogged down in the small stuff.
That's a great example. You're acknowledging a potential weakness, but you're also showing them you're committed to growing professionally.
I like it. Now, does RoleCatcher's AI offer any guidance on picking strengths and weaknesses that fit with the employer's expectations?
It sure does. RoleCatcher's AI can analyze that job description and give you some insights into the company's culture and values. This helps you figure out which strengths and weaknesses matter most to this particular employer.
Oh, that's super helpful.
And then you can tailor your answers to fit those priorities.
It's like having a personal branding expert, making sure you're presenting yourself in the best possible way.
Yeah.
All right, one more tough question. Why are you interested in this specific role? It seems pretty basic,
Right.
but it can be hard to answer genuinely.
It's a good question. This is your chance to really show your enthusiasm for this particular role.
Okay.
And to show that you've done your homework on the company. Connect your personal goals to their mission and highlight things about their work that you find interesting.
So maybe you could talk about your respect for the justice system
Absolutely.
or your desire to work on cases that make a positive difference in the world.
Right. You could also mention specific things about the company's culture or projects they've done that appeal to you. This shows them that you've taken the time to learn about them.
It's about going beyond that generic, I need a job response.
Exactly. It's
Sure.
about showing them why you're a great fit for their team.
I see. And as always, RoleCatcher's AI can be a valuable tool here.
Always.
It can analyze the company's website and their social media to understand their culture, their values, and their recent projects.
Right.
And then you can tailor your answer to match those priorities.
It's like having a research assistant who helps you connect your own interests to the company's mission.
I love that. Now, speaking of RoleCatcher, I know it offers more than just interview tips. What kind of career insights does it provide for people who are interested in becoming court jury coordinators?
That's a great question. RoleCatcher's career guide goes beyond just prepping you for interviews. It actually gives you a roadmap for your future career. It highlights potential paths you could take as you gain experience.
Oh, wow. So you're not just prepping for this one interview. You're getting a glimpse of all the possibilities.
Exactly.
I love that. Tell me more about these potential career paths.
Well, as you become more of an expert in jury dynamics and trial strategy, you could specialize and become a jury consultant.
That sounds really interesting, helping legal teams pick the right jury and craft the most effective arguments.
It is. You could also broaden your skills and become a trial consultant, advising on all aspects of trial prep, from prepping witnesses to crafting those opening and closing statements.
Wow, so you'd be the expert, guiding the whole legal team through the trial. That's incredible.
It is a pretty incredible role, and the best part is, RoleCatcher gives you this information right alongside all the interview prep stuff.
I think smart.
So you can see the bigger picture, where this role could take you.
It's like having a career GPS, guiding you to your dream job.
I like that analogy.
All right, so we got the career paths mapped out. What about certifications? Are there any specific ones that would be helpful for someone in this role?
Definitely. Becoming a certified jury consultant or a certified trial consultant can really boost your credibility
Okay.
and make you more marketable in the legal field.
And those certifications show employers that you're serious about your career, that you've gone the extra mile to gain that specialized knowledge.
Right. And the best part,
What's that?
RoleCatcher actually provides links to those certification programs. So it's easy to take that next step. It's like having a career counselor guiding you to the resources you need.
I love it. We've covered so much in this part of our deep dive. We've tackled those tough interview questions, explored different career paths, and even talked about certifications. And we've seen how RoleCatcher can be your partner every step of the way.
It's like having your own personal coaching team.
I have a feeling you've got some final tips and strategies to help our listeners really nail that interview and stand out from the crowd. Let's get into those in the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We've covered so much already, from tough interview questions to career paths and certifications. But remember, landing the job isn't just about answering questions right. It's about making an impression that sticks.
Yeah, it's like that final argument in court. You've presented your case, and now you got to leave that jury, or I guess in this case, the hiring manager, with a powerful closing statement.
That's a perfect analogy. So how do you leave them wanting more?
Well, first impressions still matter. Even though you've already spent time with the interviewer, keeping that positive energy up to the whole interview is crucial.
Couldn't agree more. Showing enthusiasm, confidence, being genuinely interested in the role.
Yeah, those things make a big difference.
They do. Simple stuff like good eye contact, sitting up straight, speaking clearly. It all projects that professional, engaged image.
It's like you're saying, I'm here, I'm ready, and I'm excited about this. But we got to remember, interviews are a two-way street.
Right?
You're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you.
That's a great point. Don't be afraid to ask good questions about the company, their culture, the team you'd be working with, maybe even the kinds of cases they handle.
Asking those smart questions shows you've done your research, that you're really trying to find the right fit. What are some questions that stand out to you?
You could ask about opportunities to grow, professional development programs or mentorship, or maybe what the company's work-life balance is like.
Yeah, good ones.
Anything that shows you're engaged and really want to be part of their team.
Okay, so I've answered their questions, I've asked my own, and now we're wrapping things up. What's the best way to end the interview?
Make sure you let them know you're still excited about the role. Say something like, I've really enjoyed learning about this opportunity. I'm even more excited about joining your team.
Simple and sincere. And of course, the thank you note afterwards is a must.
Yes, a personalized thank you note, restating your interest, mentioning something specific you discussed.
Yeah.
That can make a big difference.
It's a little thing, but it shows you appreciate their time and that you're taking this opportunity seriously. RoleCatcher can be helpful even after the interview, right? What features does it have for this stage?
Oh yeah, RoleCatcher's AI is great for this. It can help you keep track of all your applications, manage your interview schedule, even help you draft those personalized thank you notes.
That's amazing, like having a virtual assistant to guide you through the whole job hunt. So you nailed the interview, sent that thank you note, and now you're just waiting to hear back.
Oh,
Any last bits of advice for our listeners as they navigate this whole process?
it can be nerve-wracking, that's for sure. But remember, confidence and preparation are key. You've put in the work. Trust yourself, know your worth. Don't be afraid to show your passion.
This deep dive into the world of court jury coordinators has been so insightful. We've learned about what the job demands, how to tackle those interview questions, even got a peek at potential career paths and certifications.
And we've seen how RoleCatcher's AI can be a total game changer throughout this whole journey, from crafting those perfect answers to managing your job search and even getting a glimpse of where your career could go.
To wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. As technology keeps advancing, how do you think the role of a court jury coordinator will change in the future? It's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely. Just imagine the possibilities. AI might play a bigger role in picking juries. Or maybe they'll use virtual reality to create more realistic trial simulations for practice.
That's wild.
It's an exciting time to be entering this field. So much potential for growth and new ideas.
Thanks so much for being here with us today. We wish you all the best in your job search. And remember, you've got this.